Thanks for joining me for another episode of Inside the Coach's Room. I'm Steve Peters. You can just call me Petey. Today, we're heading inside the Washington Capitals Coach's Room, and we're going to talk to assistant coach Scott Allen. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Oh, thanks. And it's time to welcome in assistant coach of the Washington Capitals, Scott Allen. Scotty, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to visit with us today.
Thanks for having me, Petey. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like we used to spend every day, all day together down in the dungeons at Gila River Arena, and it's been a long time.
It has been, and those were enjoyable days for the most part. I mean,
Yeah,
just as in any season with any team, obviously sometimes you go through some tougher times, but for the most part, we had an enjoyable time.
yeah, it was great. And I do want to say this though: when you talk about coaches that are born to be coaches, that's Scott Allen. And I looked at your first year coaching was your last year playing the same season with the Johnstown Chiefs. It said you played one game and then you started to coach that team. And you are a guy that throws your gear in your trunk and your whistle, and wherever they tell you to go, you'll go. And you have, if there's a league, you've coached in it or played in it. How did you end up in Washington? The Cliff Note version of how you ended up behind the bench with the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, you know what? I've been extremely fortunate, first and foremost, Petey. I've right from the get-go, I knew I wanted to coach when I was done playing. I didn't quite think I was done playing yet. A gentleman named Toby O'Brien, who was my first general manager with the Johnstown Chiefs, had reached out to me after my 10th season of playing in the minors. And within a couple of days, he offered me a position, and I initially turned him down. And he jumped all over me, told me I was making a huge mistake, and talked me into taking the job. And it was for sure the best decision I've made. And I'm so thankful and grateful for him, first and foremost. And then, as you know, there's been a lot of stops through the way. And I tell people all the time, like, especially at the pro level, I've been extremely fortunate. I'll touch wood when I say this. This is my 29th season coaching pro hockey, between the ECHL, my first 6 years, and then between the American League and the National Hockey League. And the biggest thing I'm proud of is I've coached from day one of training camp all the way up until the end of that particular season, be it, last game of the playoffs, or if we didn't make the playoffs, last game of the regular season. I've been unemployed a couple of times during the off season, but I've been very fortunate to have found a job at some point before that next season had started. So Washington, I've been with this organization. This is my 6th season with the Capitals organization. After my time was up in Arizona, I was fortunate to land on Spencer Carberry's staff in Hershey. We spent 2 years there together. Then when he went to Toronto, I took over as the head coach for one season. And then that following season, they talked to me about coming up and joining the big club here in Washington. And, and this is my 3rd season. And as crazy as this business works sometimes, unfortunately for our staff at the time, I was with Peter Laviolette for one season. And I thoroughly enjoyed working with him, but who comes back into play was Spencer Carberry. And, him and I have developed a solid bond and a solid relationship. And it's been extremely enjoyable for me. That my whole time with this organization has been outstanding. And again, this is my sixth season with the organization.
I'm going to ask you something, because you had Laviolette, you mentioned Carberry. I know we both worked under Rick Tocchet. You've had a lot of different head coaches in the National Hockey League that you've had the opportunity to work under. How does that change your approach, or what does that do to your style? Because I know these coaches are different, and just their personalities are different. Their day-to-day operations are different. How does that make you change what you do?
So the biggest thing for me, Petey, and you know what, I've never had the desire to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. There's a lot of underlying stuff that goes with that people don't necessarily see behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I enjoy coaching too much than some of the other details that fall under and on your plate as a head coach. My biggest thing is I work around and for whoever it is that I'm working for. And just like you just said, they have different personalities. They have a different way of doing things. Their dynamics are all different. I have the ability to adjust to whoever I'm working for, and they know that I'm full on board, full support. I'm not a yes man in regards to, I just don't agree with everything. Fortunately, the guys I've worked for and worked under, that's not what they were looking for. But at the end of the day, when we can have discussions and we can even agree to disagree, but when we leave this coaching room, nobody would know the difference. Always in full support of the final decision that is made. And there is only one head coach on every team. And once he makes that final decision, I'm in full support of those situations. So again, like for me, it doesn't take long for me to dissect a head coach's personality and how they like to do things and how they, on the flip side, what they don't like. And I try to give them exactly what they need and exactly what they want out of an assistant coach.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things I try to do on the show Inside the Coaches Room is take people in there, and what you brought up is a situation that I can only speak for the coaches I've worked for, but again, differing personalities, different ideas, and I know in a room with us and John McClain and Rick Tocchet, there's different ideas, and there's no question you don't always agree with the head coach, and I think if you have a staff that always agrees with the head coach, I don't think you have a very good staff. I just think that the yes man mentality, I don't think that works because you're not getting enough fresh ideas. Having said that, the most important thing you said, and I want people to understand, is that there's one head coach and you have to come out unified. Because if you don't, and you're going, hey, this guy's wrong, I told you so, and it's not going to work. And there, hey, believe me, there's benches in the National Hockey League that they do have that kind of friction. And if you don't have that cohesive group that at least listens and communicates, I personally don't think you can win in this league.
And you know what? The people that know first and foremost, if there's a disconnect in the coach's office, are your players.
Mm-hmm.
They're the first ones that see that. And what they do, some of them will prey on that, especially, you know what, every single team, I don't care how tight the bond is and how good the chemistry and camaraderie is in the room. You certainly have guys who maybe want to play a little more, play in certain situations. And if they think they can get to one coach to work the system,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they'll do. They'll and they create almost a disconnect throughout that grows even bigger. And players are smart. They truly are smart, and they see those situations. And we're preaching togetherness and cohesiveness and work ethic together as a team to the players, and meanwhile they're saying, yeah, just like you guys do back there.
Exactly.
So it's a fine line to walk. But and listen, you know what, you and I both know this, there have been teams that have won the Stanley Cup that have certainly had a disconnect in the coach's office. But this is what I'll tell you about that. They've been so strong,
Mm-hmm.
and the players were in their prime, that there's a couple of teams out there that won them, and I'm not being disrespectful.
Yeah.
You probably could have had a monkey standing behind the bench and they would have won the
Yeah.
Stanley Cup as well.
I've said that too. I said me and Jim O'Neill, the security guard of the Arizona Coyotes, could have won a couple of cups on a few of those teams. But I completely agree. But let's take it back to Washington. The Washington Capitals, and it's a team last year that literally gets into the playoffs on the last day of the year, tied with the Detroit Red Wings, a team that was in and out of the playoffs all season. Kudos to them for getting in, because I think, again, it was an aging team. You looked at the Pittsburgh Penguins, another aging team, and you go, gosh, maybe their window is closed in Washington. But then things change over the summer. They get swept by the Rangers. You got in, and I think it was outstanding getting in with the team that you had a season ago. But this year, right now, you're fighting for a President's Trophy. A President's Trophy. The Washington Capitals. I spoke with somebody early in the year. We'll get into some other people on the staff later, but said, keep an eye on the Capitals. This is a special year here. There's something special going on. Early in the year, there was just something special. How did this team go from one of an aging teams that played, hey, I'm going to say it, they played slow a year ago, to a team that, man, this team plays fast. This is an exciting team to watch. They get through the Blues quick. What the hell happened between last season and this season?
Well, just to take a quick step back first, Petey, is what we had to do last year. We had to find a way with what we had last year to get it. Like, the goal differential that everybody likes to
Mm-hmm.
talk about. Like, it didn't make sense,
Yeah.
It was a one-off in that type of situation. And we knew we couldn't, well, we knew we probably couldn't do that again. So management did an incredible job this offseason. They truly did. They went out and they identified some pieces and they made trades. They signed guys as unrestricted free agents. And the pieces that they added, I believe we started the season with 7 new guys opening night in our lineup. With that being said, and especially nowadays, because with gambling being legalized throughout North America, now you have the sports books who are putting the odds down before the season even starts. You
Mm-hmm.
have the hockey people that pride themselves working in the business that also had their preseason predictions on who would be in and who would not be in. And prior to the season and all those situations that I looked at, I didn't see a single person, a single sports book, anybody had us making the playoffs this year. So to be where we're sitting right now, I would certainly say we've overachieved. But again, it starts upstairs with upper management. And that goes all the way to the top. It goes, our ownership group is incredible. And they give, they hire people to do the job, and those people have stepped up and done the job. And then Spencer Carberry's done a tremendous job in his second season here as a head coach in the National Hockey League. But the thing that I certainly don't want overlook at all, because it doesn't matter what everybody else does, our players have done a tremendous job. They've bought in from day one, from the first meeting we had that open training camp, and it was laid out for them as far as the foundation in regards to how we were built and how we were going to continue to build on our foundation. It's been a complete buy-in. We have a great room. The guys all get along. They enjoy being around each other because, as you know, you mentioned earlier, like during the hockey season especially, we're with each other way more than we are with
Sure.
our families. We spend a ton of time together. So, I do think that carries a lot of weight, that they enjoy coming to the rink. They enjoy being together on the road, not necessarily being away from their family when we're on the road. We just got back from a 12-day trip out west, but it's all part of the job. It's all part of
Mm-hmm.
the business. And when you are in those situations, you have to certainly make the most of them. And our guys, it's been fun to watch as a coach, just to see the success that these guys have been having. Now, we're still a long way from the playoffs, but to see where we're sitting right now, like our last game, to be over 50 games into a National Hockey League season, and you had the top team in the West in Winnipeg and the top team in the East and us playing. It was a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
It was a fun game. We were down 2 goals in the third period. It's meaningful games, and the big thing too with it, Petey, is we're not catching anybody by surprise anymore.
Right.
Maybe early in the
Yep.
season we caught some teams by surprise, right? They didn't know quite what to expect, but now, you know what? We're a measuring stick. That's the sell that the coaches have to whoever we're playing and wherever we're playing at. Like, hey, listen, this is one of the top teams in the National. If you want to see where we're at right now, this is the challenge. Washington Capitals present that type of challenge right now, and to me, that's fun. That's fun to be the hunted. Tomorrow night we won't be, because we're playing the defending Stanley Cup
Yeah.
champs in Florida. But night in and night out, we know we're getting everybody's best, and that's enjoyable.
I know we're going to get to some coaching stuff a little bit later, but I do want to ask about a few players on this roster. And one of them is a guy here, and everybody knows I'm sitting here in Arizona, and I was with this organization for 23 years. And there's a player on this team in Washington, drafted by the Arizona Coyotes 3rd overall, and was thought to be washed up. Kid can't play. And that's Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome right now is leading the Washington Capitals in points with 50 points in 52 games, almost a point a game player. One, how has he evolved in Washington? What do you see from Dylan Strome?
So first and foremost, Dylan is a great person. He's a good person. He's not selfish. He's very humble. This is a guy who was drafted third overall by Arizona. Expectations were certainly high. But you know what? What people seem to forget sometimes is everybody's development curve is different. It doesn't matter where a guy was drafted. We're gambling on 18-year-old kids and trying to project where they're going to be at in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and hopefully 10 years. And it's such a difficult thing to do. I worked for an organization one time, and what they wanted to do was, I was coaching in the American League, and they wanted me to take all the players and put like a timeline on when I thought they were going to be ready to play in the National Hockey League. And I said, I won't do this. I refuse to do it. And they said, why? I said, it's impossible. That's like trying to bet on a child when he enters school in kindergarten, and to know the exact date, like when he's going to be able to speak his third language, and when he's going to be able to do, you know what I mean? It's just impossible, because that learning curve is different from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. I'm talking about a professional athlete right now. So the challenge with Dylan was, the team in Arizona was in a rebuild. And it's especially tough when you have young guys like that on rebuild teams, because now the expectations are even higher, right? And it's unfair. It's certainly a challenge. So best case scenario with guys like Dylan, you insulate them, you surround them with a certain type of pro that's been around, regardless of how the team is, whether that team is in a rebuild, whether it's a team that's on the cusp, or whether it's a team that's currently challenging for possibly Stanley Cup, and they have the opportunity to grow at their own rate, at their own pace. Yeah, we can try to accelerate it, and that's our job as coaches. But sometimes, you can push too hard. It's like throwing a baby into the deep end and saying, "Go ahead, swim." It doesn't work quite that way. So it was unfortunate in how it worked out. Then he got some time in Arizona. Went from Arizona to Chicago. And his game started to evolve in Chicago with just who he was playing with. And there was less pressure, I think, because he wasn't the third overall first-round pick of that team. He was a player that they acquired. And then we were fortunate to pick him up, and he's played extremely well here. And you mentioned his points, but what's also very impressive to me is I think Dylan's like a plus 12 right now. He's been a plus player the entire season. He takes a lot of pride in his game being well-rounded. Now, one thing I'll tell you about Dylan, and the challenge with a guy like him, he wasn't fleet of foot, right? Like a Connor McDavid, a Jack Eichel. Those guys have afterburners, and Dylan is not built the same way. So he's been able to do what he's done at every level without being the same type of player as those guys. And that's fine. So that was the adjustment period too. It wasn't like when he got to the National Hockey League, all of a sudden after a few years, he was going to be a speed burner, So he's been able to find his game with who he is and what he is, with his tool set. And he has a tremendous tool set. Probably his best is his mind for the game, how he thinks the game, how he positions himself on the ice. Continues to work on his game all the time, works on face-offs, works on his shot, works on his passing, works on his defensive play. Takes a lot of pride in what he does. So I'm extremely happy for him and the success that he's had up to this point.
Well, it's funny, you talk about your coaching staff there and what they've been able to unlock with these players like Dylan Strome, but another guy that's had multiple teams trying to find his way in this National Hockey League, another guy that was supposed to be really good when he was young, and now he's finding his place there is Pierre Dubois. What unlocked for him in Washington?
First thing I'll tell you, like, he knows he's not only well liked here, he's loved. He's loved. we have a full appreciation for who he is, for what he's able to do within the game. Again, such a cerebral player in regards to his mind on the ice and putting himself in good spots. So that 1-2 punch up the middle between him and Dylan has been great for us. For whatever reason, it didn't quite work out in LA. But in the truest sense of how a good trade benefits both teams. And that's truly what you've seen. Like Darcy Kemper has gone to LA. And as you know, both you and I have had time with Darcy in Arizona, and then I was fortunate to have him here, right? Another solid guy, and you just want to see him have success as well. So it's worked out very well for him there. But more importantly for the Washington Capitals in this day and age is what Dubes is able to do for us coming in here, can play in all situations. He's the type of guy, he makes others around him better. Some people are very good players, and then some people are very good players who also up the ante for the guys that they're playing with, and he's certainly been one of those guys for us through these first 50 games.
And one thing I want to mention on him, and I think some players get a bad rap on, and I'm not speaking specifically to him, but I'm just saying there's players, oh, he's a bad guy. And I think it gets into the media, he's a bad guy, or he's difficult to work with, or you can't coach him. And I've mentioned this on this show before about Taylor Hall, and oh, Taylor Hall's bad. No, Taylor Hall's not a bad guy at all. He's actually a really, really nice guy. Now, there are some things on the ice you don't always agree with the way he plays, but he's not a bad person or a bad teammate
Right.
or a bad locker room guy. And I think unless you sit in there and go to war with these guys, you just don't know. Like, you're speaking through the media is not a fair picture of what's happening inside with this player. And I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is an exact representation of that you just don't know until you get him in your own room.
Absolutely. And one thing I will tell you is he is not a bad guy. Like I don't know how that all started. I don't know. Maybe he had a bad run-in with somebody. He could have had a couple of bad days. I don't really know. And honestly, nor do I care. I'm more concerned with the present and the version of Pierre-Luc that we're getting and have seen up to this point has been tremendous. Like I mentioned earlier, our locker room is fantastic, and he's sitting in that room every day. And right from the first day that I met him, he's a coach's son. His dad coaches in the American League in Winnipeg, and was fortunate to spend a little bit of time with his dad on the father's trip this year. And you know what, you can tell where he gets his smarts from in regards to the game. He's always thinking the game. Another guy who's always trying to better himself. Takes a tremendous amount of pride in himself. And that's the other thing too. I think he had maybe a little chip on his shoulder coming in here just because of the potential negative press surrounding it by some people. I don't think everybody, but there for sure were some people out there that wrote some negative stuff about it. And again, when those type of things happen and you meet the person and you get to know the guy and a little bit about his family and his background, for me as a coach, I take a tremendous amount of pride when I see him having the success that he's having. I'm so happy for him. I know he's coming into the rink every morning in great spirits. He's leaving in great spirits. The only time he's not is when we lose hockey games, and that's how you want your athletes to be.
I've got to talk about one more player specifically in your locker room, and I kind of buried the lead here, is when you talk about the Washington Capitals, there's only one player that people really think of that comes to mind, and that's Alexander Ovechkin, sitting at 877, 19 short of 894. I will be the first to say, because when I'm wrong, I always say I'm wrong. I thought last year's team was playing to get him the record. And I thought that this team's going the wrong direction. They're going to be a bottom feeder. All they're worried about is trying to get him the record. Once he gets the record, he can retire and they can go back to winning. I was wrong. I apologize, Mr. Leonsis. I sincerely apologize. What's it like? What's it like? What's it like following this? Because this has to be media circus every city. It's got to be all the attention on 8. What's it like in the room and on the road when you're traveling?
It's incredible. He's incredible. He's one of a kind. There will never be another one like Ovi. No disrespect to the guys before him and what they did. He hasn't broken the record yet, but he is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game. And it's fun. And you know, Kirk Muller's on our staff, and Mully's good friends with Wayne. And you know, to hear you know, Wayne truly wants to see Ovi break this record. It's exciting for us because when it gets close, you know, Wayne will be apparently traveling with us and hopefully
Nice.
being around. Yeah, so we're all. It's an amazing event. If and when that time comes, it's going to be such a special moment. I honestly can't see anybody unless they completely change the rules of this game. I don't see anybody breaking this record, and the reason being is, you know, you have to average 40 goals for 20 years just to get to
Jeez.
800.
That's insanity.
So you know how healthy you have to be, and this is a tough business. It's a tough industry to stay that healthy to play that many games. I mean, you've seen it this year with Matthews has unfortunately missed, you know, a fair amount of games with Toronto. So to do what Ovi has done up to this point, it's amazing to see him on a daily basis. And like you said, I mean, he's Ovi. He's one of a kind. So if we're at home, if we're on the road, there's a demand for his time. You know, everybody wants a little piece of him, be it an autograph, a selfie. And he's just to watch how accommodating he has been for the fans, to see where this franchise was prior to him getting here and the amount of tickets that they sold back then, and to see now the amount of red jerseys in the building with number 8 on the back. It's impressive. He's done such a tremendous job of building hockey in this DCA area. I can't say enough about him. I honestly can't. And you know, he's everything you would hoped he would be and more.
I want to say this first, a big shout out because he missed 16 games with a broken leg. Only 16 games. Jason Service, the head medical guy there in Washington, former medical guy of the Arizona Coyotes. First of all, miss you, Jason Service. But hats off to Jason Service. Hope there was a nice bottle of wine in his stall from number 8 for getting him back so quickly. Miracle worker there in the medical room. They do a great job. Medical staff. I'm a huge Jason Service fan. One of the best guys I've ever worked with in the league. So say hi to him when you see him. One thing I do want to know about
Serbs. I just want to say Serbs and his staff, which includes our equipment, our equipment guys, our strength training guys. They are top notch across the board. And you're right. That whole crew is a huge reason why Ovi got back as quickly as he did. I mean, give credit to where credit's due.
Sure.
Ovi's a specimen. He's a special human, and not everybody could do that, but he certainly needed some help. And those guys were top notch for him. And with
I want to get back to those guys in a minute, but I do have one more Ovechkin question because we see it again on the periphery and we see it on TV. And I tell you what, you said it. I don't see anybody that wants to score as much as him. When the puck is loose or anywhere near the net, it's a dog on a bone. I mean, it is unbelievable to watch his pursuit of a puck anywhere in the offensive zone. But my question to you is, I want to know, aside from the goals, what's his desire and motivation to win at this stage of his career?
Well, if you asked him, and I truly believe this is the just knowing him, if he'd rather win another Stanley Cup or break the record, without hesitation, he'll tell you he'd rather win another cup. Yeah, wow. That's how much he cares. And the other thing too is he loves when the puck goes across the goal line, not just for him, But if you watch him, when other guys score, he's just as excited for them, for us as a team when that puck goes in. And I'll tell you right now, that's not always the case with goal
Yeah.
scorers. They have a tendency to celebrate their own accolades, but Ovi, he's just as happy if somebody else, especially if it's somebody that doesn't score a lot. It even excites him even more.
I'm excited to watch this down the stretch because I thought it would take him longer. I put it into next season because of injuries and how the game. It's hard, man. It's hard to score 20 goals in this league, let alone 40. I did. I thought it was going to be a year from now, but hey, there's no reason he can't break it this year. And honestly, if he didn't have the lockout, he didn't have the shortened season, he didn't have COVID, he'd be there by now. So unfortunately for that, but this team has been playing great. You just said that first back-to-back losses in over a month, but they were both in overtime. But you talked about the trainers, and it's a point I wasn't even thinking about going into, but I know I've been around teams, never won a cup. I'm not on a team that's been that far, but I've been around a team that went to the Western Conference Finals and that has had some success in the playoffs. And one of the big keys to that happening, good players, good coaching staff, but the periphery, if you don't have a training staff, medical staff, gym staff, if they're not on board, man, they can turn things sour in a hurry because the players are around those guys way more than they're around the coaching staff. What are your thoughts on how that group and how important that group is to winning?
Yeah, and again, there's no doubt. Like I talked about earlier, everything in our organization starts from the top, and it's that trickle down effect. And what I found when I joined this organization was they hire quality people. They do their due diligence and their background, and they know what they're getting. And it doesn't matter what the role is. And then go do your job. Do your job. We know we've hired a good person. So be it you're a strength and conditioning coach, or you're a trainer, you're assistant trainer, you're medical staff, equipment staff, the guys behind the scenes that do the media, just everything across the board. Because again, I think they truly get it. They understand the demands on everybody for the job and the time spent together in these jobs. And they know how important that is. They know the carryover. Now it's a tough sport, right? And so you can escape some injuries for sure. And you have to get lucky as well to stay healthy enough to give yourself a chance. Because if the injuries stop mounting up, and yeah, everybody has the same philosophy, the next man up attitude, but nobody is that deep that you can sustain a certain level of play and a certain level of excellence if you are that beaten down. So on a day-to-day basis, how the communication goes from the strength guys, the medical Serbs and Serbs brings that to Spencer Carberry, and then decisions are made in regards to how hard we practice, whether we need a little extra time off, our travel, just all across the board. No stone is unturned. We try to give ourselves the best chance. We try to give our athletes, put our athletes in the best possible position for success. And it takes an army. It truly does.
Well, if anybody's listening in Arizona, anybody with a lot of money, did you hear what he said? It says ownership on down. Just a little tip to anybody that wants to get that Coyotes 2.0 going. It starts with ownership. Just saying. Did you know, Scott Allen, that you were part of a coaching staff that was the NHL's coaching staff of the month in November, named by the NHL Coaches Association? Did you know that? Because I didn't know that existed until I started doing my research.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know it existed myself until we won
Until
it.
you won it.
Because
Yeah.
once we won it, people were reaching out that apparently did know it existed to say congratulations. So yeah,
There you go.
it was good.
Proud of you. And then let's get to
Thanks,
why
buddy.
the hell I had you on in the first place is how you coach the penalty kill. And I will say this. I put people in high esteem that I've worked with and had the opportunity to see do their jobs and do it well. And Scotty Allen coaches the penalty kill better and different than anybody I've ever worked with in 23 years. And when people ask me, who's the guy, he's the guy. And I'll say it to Newell Brown. If you're listening, Newell, you're the power play guy. If we ever get that far, you are the power play guy. But the penalty kill guy, and it's incredibly important. And this penalty kill right now in Washington is third best in the National Hockey League, following only Dallas and Carolina. First question is, why? Like, why are you a penalty kill guy? When did that love of taking that strategy and doing something with it, when did that come in?
Well, first, thank you very much for the very humbling, and I very appreciate the remarks. It certainly means a lot. You know what? Like we talked about earlier, 29 seasons coaching. You know, early on, you do everything in this game, and everything in regards to the coaching of the game. You know what? I was never afraid. I try to pride myself on being a research and development guy. You know this as well as anybody. This is such a copycat business. Sure. It's a copycat league. You know, half the teams the following year in training camp after a Stanley Cup gets won, half the teams think they're going to play, you know, whatever system won the cup. You know, Florida Panthers system. And well, it's impossible, because you have to gauge your personnel and find out if you're even capable of doing that. So it's no different within systems within this game. And penalty kill had stayed the same for a long time, where it was really passive. And I wasn't afraid to try different things with different types of players that I had. And it just evolved from there. My thoughts, my philosophies. Now, I will tell you this: I continue to evolve as a coach. You know, it's not one way, the only way. There's been additions to it. There's been subtractions to it, and that's mostly based on, you know, the type of players that I had. Right, as you know, like we had Brad Richardson and Michael Grabner. Usually coming over the boards first down there in Arizona. Well, I haven't coached too many teams where I've had a guy like Michael Grabner, and Richie was just so smart, and they developed chemistry, playing to each other's strengths, and that's a huge part of this too. So I try to gauge on the personnel that they may have at any given moment. And build with that and build around that, and get everybody on board, from your goalie to your D through your forwards. You know, there's an old saying, your best penalty killer has to be your goalie. Well, I don't buy it. I do think he has to be very good, as everybody has to be very good. Everybody has a job to do it. That's the biggest thing. And we teach certain indicators and certain times where our guys can get aggressive, and certain times where they should probably back off a little bit. A big part of it, as you know, at this level, is personnel-based power plays, because they present different problems, right? On any given night, the challenge is the guys you are trying to defend, the power play you're trying to kill. It's different. 31 other teams in this league, every power play is different based on their personnel. So that's a huge challenge for our guys. So our guys, if they don't have a buy-in, if they don't have a belief, if they don't think that the research is being done, they're probably not gonna. It's a tough sell on them. So again, I give a ton of credit. All the credit goes to the players, with what they've been able to do, and to get a full handle, to grasp it, to understand it, to believe in it. And, you know, sometimes the challenge is you get scored against a couple of times. Oh boy, we need to change. Well, you know, if you can show the hows, the whys, is it an easy fix? Is it not fixable at all? Because if you get into situations where you're starting to find you're getting sliced and diced and you can't fix it, you probably better change to something different. So I've been extremely fortunate. And again, a huge part of it too is the head coaches that I've worked for and worked under, and the belief and the opportunity that they've given me, at any given time, and said, take it and run with it. It's I'm fortunate. I can tell you that I'm extremely fortunate.
But I look at this too, and I just want to explain something for those that don't understand. When you talk about system play, systems are the rules. You're allowed to go this far when the puck is here. You play this way when the puck is up top. You can all of that. That's what you're talking about. Systems are the rules that players follow to know where to go on the ice. But so I know your players have a structure that they follow. This is the rules. This is your system. But then you play the Edmonton Oilers. And I know where the shot's trying to come from. It's either Bouchard up top or they're trying to get Draisaitl on the low right circle. So you've got your system, but every night do you have to be able to tweak that system depending on that? So now we're going, okay, we're still going to play the same way. We're still going to be aggressive when we're aggressive. Our sticks are still going to be in lanes. We're going to do this way. However, now be aware of this. Is that what goes on in the coach's room before these meetings?
Absolutely. That's all information. It's my responsibility to get that information to our players. So I have a certain way that I do things in regards to, I work with a video staff, our video coaches. They provide me exactly what I need in regards to video. I take a fair amount of time in trying to dissect it, because you know what, the foundation of it all, some of it's very easy when you talk about those two things you just mentioned with Edmonton, the shot coming up top, or Leon playing on his offside, and how dangerous he can be anywhere from the blue line to below the goal line on that side. And not everybody is in this league, right? But so that part of it is fairly easy, but there's some other things that we try to look for, some other type of tendencies, some cells that we try to find out about for our players to give them the best chance to have success. And here's the other thing too, Petey. I don't want to overwhelm our guys with information. I only give them a fraction of what I actually dissect, because if I sat in there, first of all, as you know, if you start getting
shorten it up, Scotty, the meeting.
Absolutely. You start getting that meeting too long and they are not even listening. They've tuned out. They're singing songs in their head.
Sure.
And guess what? That's on me. That's my, if they go out and fail that night, that is on me. So it's a fine line in between how much information they are given and provided, and so they can go out and perform, because it's the best league in the world. It's the best players in the world. And I don't care what level you're coaching at, whether it's major, junior, whether it's USHL, whether it's college hockey, major, junior, whatever league you're in, you're talking about probably the best 10% of that particular team's players that on the ice, right, for the power play. In the National Hockey League, some nights we're talking about the best 1% of players in the entire world. So if I'm giving guys information that they have to overthink in their head before they can react, it's too late. The shot has already come. There's a strong possibility the second shot has come, and once you start giving up opportunities like that, the odds increase of you having being unsuccessful in getting scored against. And that's, again, that falls on me if I do that.
It's a fine line, because I know as a coach, and I've seen coaches like this, so I've worked with them, that you guys do a lot of work. Like it's a tremendous, and the work never ends from the first day of training camp till the end of the season. Work doesn't end. I don't care if it's Christmas Eve, you're working. I understand that. But there is a fine line of, hey, I know it and I need to show you it, because I've worked with coaches that in special teams specifically, that through meetings and the messages on the boards and messages on players' iPads and phones and papers taped to walls, and you're like, true story. We had players on a team get on the ice during a game and go, what's our breakout tonight? Because there was just too much information. So I understand that fine line to making sure you get it. I do want to talk about something on the penalty kill that drives me nuts. There's two things in the National Hockey League that I would go on a soapbox for every day of the week. One of them's the RVH goalie. Stand up. Jerry Shevers would say that all day long. Stand up. I saw one again last night. Stand up, Buffalo. Stop the RVH. Benoit Allaire, get on it. The second one is the power play drop pass. It drives me absolutely bonkers that every team, and I get it, and I've heard it from Newell Brown and I argue about it. It works. It slows them down. It works. Yeah, it works when you come with speed, but not everybody executes it properly. So to you, as a penalty kill coach, you know the team you're playing tonight because every team does it, copycats. Every team's going to drop packs. Everybody's going to drop the puck back to speed coming up late. How do you, without giving secrets away, I'm not looking for secrets. By the way, your opponents are watching your films, so they know what they do. What the hell can we do? Can we? What do you want to just send one guy down and just take that away and just say, okay, now go ahead and play 3-on-3? Like, what's your mentality on that power play drop pass?
Well, there's an old saying: there's more than one way to skin a cat, and so
Yeah.
there is more than one way to defend the two-man drop. I would say a majority of the teams play it into essentially a 1-3 right
Sure.
now. Some teams may start in a neutral zone diamond, which is essentially a 1-2-1. But as that play develops and on that drop and you start sucking your coverage back, it almost always ends up with three guys stacked across the blue. Some teams will challenge at different moments at different times between the defending blue and the center red. They may take stabs at pucks, put themselves in a position where they may get caught. It's high risk, high reward type of stuff,
Right.
For some of those teams. I don't want to get scored off on the rush. I do not want to get scored off on it. It drives me absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, last game against Winnipeg, what happened? We got scored off on the rush. Initial shot, rebound, back of the net. It's an easy fix for us and how we defend in that situation. But I think I smashed my head against the plexiglass behind the coach's
You take it
bench
personal
a few times.
Do you take it personal, Scotty, when you get scored on?
I 100% take it personal. But I take 5-on-5 personal. I take the power play personal. I take everything personal. Wins, losses. Yeah, I still have a little competitive juice in this old body that, yeah, for sure. I take those situations personal. It drives me crazy. But to get back to what you were saying, there is different ways to try to defend it. But again, we just talked about it before. There's a big difference when the puck is in Connor McDavid's hands.
Sure.
And he's coming Mach 7 through the neutral zone, because not everybody can bring that heat, can bring that speed.
Sure.
Can make
and that's adjustments again, right?
Yes, 100%. One thing we're trying to do, we don't want our guys to end up on the wrong end of the stick on the Sports Center highlights either that night or the next day, right? And they take pride in their game too. So, it's just natural tendencies. You see that type of speed coming at you, you're going to get a little bit nervous, in regards to how you defend it. So there are different ways. I'm a big angles guy and establishing angles. I'm a big stick guy and stick placement. Support off the initial puck, what guys doing on the puck, what guys are doing off the puck. There's quite a few different things, but even in regards to, you talked about the two-man drop, even with what teams are doing off of those types, they all try to enter the zone the same way, which is four guys across. You got two ladder options that are on the wall on both sides, and you got two guys essentially coming across the blue line at the dot lines. So they've got some width to their attack. And then depending on how you defend it, you either allow them to establish some depth with that width, or you try to take that away early on. And again, that's all about your philosophies and who can do what. If you have a team with longer bodies, so what I mean by that is like, Zdeno Chara was a unbelievable player. He had a great career in this league. one of the reasons he did was because he had the longest range of anybody
Yeah.
playing. And so, you know what? Guys aren't used to that type of range. These guys are ultra smart. Not only are they ultra competitive, but they're extremely smart. So they're used to a certain, the average player, say he's 6'1", 210. Well, you put a stick in that guy's hand. It doesn't matter if the guy uses a long stick, a short stick. Like, as an offensive player, you have a pretty good idea
Sure.
of the range that you have and how tight you can get. Zdeno Chara, he could poke check you from the faceoff dot to the half wall, right? He
Yeah.
was that, he had that much range. So those things play into it, right? Some teams are built different than others in regards to the size of their D and their penalty killers. So you have to take all that stuff into account as well on those particular breakouts through the neutral zone, and then ultimately, hopefully denying the entry and not giving up a chance off the rush.
Well, for people I'm encouraged that are listening to this to watch the Washington Capitals penalty kill now on that drop, double drop. I don't, you call it so many different the delay entry. Watch and see how the Washington Capitals handle that. And if and when it ever messes up, make sure you blame Scotty Allen. Scotty, a couple other things I want to get a little more fun here. And the first one, this is a lot of pressure because I didn't prepare you for this question at all. You have played or coached in almost every league in North America. And I'm not saying that funny. You do. You've been around a lot. And there's been a lot of time that you've spent on the road. And one of the things I always ask people is to give me a tale from the road. And what I'm looking for is a prank. And I'll give you an example. Something. So you've got to think, well, I'm giving you some time here to think of a prank that was played on you or one that you played on someone or you've seen on a team you coached. And I'll give you an example. I had Rick Tocchet on here. And Rick Tocchet said he fell asleep on a commercial plane. And Ulf Samuelsson stole his shoes, and they didn't claim it at the time. Talk, no idea who stole his shoes. He had to go the rest of the day through the airport to the hotel on the bus, no shoes. So you have been around a very long time. Can you think of an instance where there, as a player or a coach, where you saw something that you go, and it's a family program, so we'll keep that in mind. Can you think of a good prank that you have seen in the National Hockey League or East Coast League or in the USHL or somewhere along your travels?
Yeah. So up until the national, all my travel as a player was done on buses.
Oh,
And when I first started playing in the old Atlantic Coast League, teams own their own buses, and they were not luxury liners. They broke down quite often. And trust me when I tell you, we had a ton of fun back in those days for sure. But as far as I, if you would have prepared me for this,
I know.
I talked about the amount of years coaching. I was also very fortunate to play 10 years in the minors. So this is my 39th season in pro hockey. So
Jeez.
some of the things are starting to slip out of the memory. The memory bank can only hold so much.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you mentioned just talking with Mully, like especially
Yeah.
the age that we're at,
Yeah.
and the guys in the NHL. I think they were more apt to play in those breaks. Like when I first started coaching, I coached with Nick Fotiu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Nick's a living legend with the New York Rangers, hometown guy, Staten Island guy. Who made it to play for the hometown team. He's loved and revered, and he used to love the pranks. And he, back in those, again, this is a long time ago now when we first started
Yep.
coaching. So even like now, we have our own chef, and we have breakfast made every morning and lunch made,
Yeah. Life's
and
tough.
uh, and it's unbelievable food. It's outstanding. It's high quality. It's very nutritional. But back in those days, there was nothing. So guys used to bring a couple of dozen donuts and Nick was one of those guys who would on occasion every couple of weeks pick up a couple of dozen donuts, and he always would make sure he'd get some cream filled donuts, and the cream was conveniently replaced with shaving cream.
No.
100%, 100%.
No.
And oh yeah, Nick used to love the stuff like that. But again, it goes back to that era, that time. Where those guys, when Talk started playing in the league, and when Kirk Mullop was playing in the league, and when Nick Fatio was playing in the league, those guys used to fly commercial, right?
Sure.
So that carried over. You talk to those guys, they do the string on the $10 bill at the airport and things of that
I've
nature.
seen it.
Just
I've seen
to
it.
have, absolutely, just to probably kill some time. While there's a
Sure.
lot of hurry up and wait type of situations where, I mean, one thing you've certainly seen throughout the years is the shoe check is still a big part of
Does
this
that still
game for
happen?
whatever.
Does that still
It
happen?
absolutely, it absolutely still happens.
I thought that
I
somebody's
witnessed
player
it.
agent or mom would call if you ruined their shoes. Shoe checking,
Oh,
you
it's
ting a glass at a team meal, everybody tings their glass, which means somebody has smeared either sour cream, butter, or some substance like that, and smeared it on your shoe as they crawled around the floor like an army man and did it to you under the table. It's absolutely hilarious. I thought that had stopped. It's good to know that there's still shoe checking in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and I think the probably the best prankster recently in the game is Marc-Andre Fleury with what he
Yeah.
did with Brandon Duhaime when those guys were playing together in Minnesota. So if people go back and look up those type of
I
situations,
Google that one.
I think it's
That's
very
aggressive.
creative and funny. Yeah,
And I know this
yeah.
one, this one is near and dear to my heart, but I was trying to petition this in the bubble, Scotty. We had when the Arizona Coyotes went to the bubble, there was a much more relaxed atmosphere in the bubble that year in 2020, and a bunch of coaching staff said, "Hey, we're not going to wear suits. We're not going to wear suits. It doesn't matter. There's no fans in the building. We're not going to wear suits." And only two teams that year didn't wear suits in the bubble, and it was the Arizona Coyotes, Rick Tocchet. We were not required to wear suits, and John Tortorella in the East did not wear suits. So my question to you, because you've stood behind these benches forever, and people have got to understand. First of all, it's there's ice there. This is cold, and there are some of these arenas that are very cold, and they're not suited for suits. Secondly, you guys have nice shoes on, and the floor of a hockey bench is disgusting. It's disgusting. It's sweat, it's spit, it's water, it's Gatorade. Like, it's awful. I'm not making that up. It is horrific. And you guys are wearing your suits and your shoes. Scott Allen, is it time that the NHL goes more John Tortorella, like the NFL has, like the NBA has? I don't want you to wear uniforms like MLB, but is it time for the NHL to get rid of suits and look nice like Tortorella does, but get rid of the suits?
So here's what I'll say. I'm going to walk the political line with this one, Petey. I have a ton of respect for the traditions of
Sure.
this game that have been passed down from the original six, which
Yep.
has been a long time. So if we're going to stay suited, I would say bring back the fedora, because the
Oh,
fedora adds an unbelievable look on the bench, and I'm
yes.
sure the hat shops across North America would be extremely excited if that were to happen. Either that or the scally cap with it.
I love it.
So I could go either way. Now, with that being said, I am and have always been. I've been fortunate to know. I first met John Tortorella 39 years ago, my first year playing
Mhm.
pro, and I have a great relationship with him. I love the guy, everything he's done in his career. I have nothing but respect for Torts, and you know what? I love what he's done. I
Yeah.
love that he's doing what he's doing right now. I think it's just a matter of time. I honestly think the league is possibly missing the boat
I do
on
too.
a type of sponsorship deal they could have with a clothing company out there that could be the official outfit. Now we have great suits right now, right? Like right now through the Coaches Association. The
Sure.
Coaches Association has done a tremendous job for the coaches. Right now we have a great deal with Sir Masseur, where coaches get a suit every year from them, and it's awesome. They've been a great. But if it does go the other way, there are companies out there like Lululemon, Nike.
Oh, yes.
It's endless.
Endless.
Fanatics is obviously the
Sure.
official supplier right now of the league, but I just think there could be a potential missed opportunity right now. And again, you've seen it in other sports, right? You've seen the NBA coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Landry, he was the epitome of what I just talked about. He wore a suit and a fedora back in the day with the
Sure.
Dallas Cowboys, but other coaches did not. So now I don't think there's any football coaches left that shirt
Yeah.
and tie on the sidelines, and Bill Belichick obviously took it to another level with the cutoff hoodies and things of
The
that
happy
nature.
medium,
So
right? It's got a happy medium. One thing I do want to say that
100%.
we're going to be done, but you brought up a name, and it's a name that I want to get that public perception versus what's reality, and that's John Tortorella. And this isn't about John Tortorella. This isn't a show about John Tortorella, but there's a perception out there. He's mean, he's tough, and what he's difficult human being. You said it. I worked with him here my first 2 years in Arizona. Could not be further from the truth. Absolutely one of the nicest human beings I've ever come in contact with in the National Hockey League. And I sincerely mean that. He's, to this day, if he saw me, he'd ask about my son. He is a phenomenal human being. And that's how the perceptions in this league get skewed. Your thoughts on John Tortorella?
Love the man. I've loved him from the first time that I've met him. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had a chance to play pro hockey. He's been very, he's been very supportive of my entire career, all the way through coaching. I can't say enough about him. And if caring about people and wanting the best for your players is being mean, he's got a certain style to him, and not everybody can be torts. But it's all about, because he cares so much about his team, about his players, and all he wants is the best. Your window of opportunity as a professional athlete only lasts so long, and all he's trying to do is capture your best. That's what our job is. That's what my job is on a daily basis. All I want to do is get the best out of my athletes, and that's all he essentially wants. And you know what? I've got nothing but respect for John Tortorella.
Scotty Allen, we said it 15 or 20 minutes. I said I was going to take you your time today, and here we just topped the 1 hour mark, and we could probably go another. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I think people need to see what goes on behind the doors. I really do, and I think you're one of the best at what you do. Thanks for taking the time. Wish the Washington Capitals the best of luck this season. Tune in to watch the Grade 8 and the Capitals and their march through the playoffs this season. Scott, thanks for taking the time, and looking forward to catching up again soon.
It was great talking with you, Petey. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, same, Scotty. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's going to do it for today's edition of Inside the Coaches Room. Thanks so much to Scotty Allen, and thanks for joining me inside the Coaches Room. Please go and subscribe to this YouTube channel and give this show a like. And until next time, I'm Petey, and we'll see you at the ring.